mark your calendars.
Okay, and then last but definitely not least, Miss Carla Magruder.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carla. I am a genetic counselor. Genetic counselors specialize in family history and knowing where disease comes from by doing genetic testing. I specialize in cancer genetics as well as cardiogenetics, neurogenetics, and pharmacogenetics, a new field that looks at your medicine and how your genes impact that. Outside of that, I have my own business, Big Genes Genetic Counseling Services, where I do consulting for people who want that on the side without their insurance or want to speak at different functions, family events for genetic counseling. I have five brothers. I'm the only girl, and I have three daughters, and I am here in Texas. Happy to be here tonight.
All right, well, ladies, let's go ahead and get this party started. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. And before we get started, folks, I want to remind you we do have a chat line open. So do please, if you have some thoughts, questions, or anything that you'd like for us to talk about during tonight's show, jump on the chat line and do that. But also, we do have our phone line open. So if you would like to call in, ask a question, make a comment, or provide a thought briefly, folks. The number is scrolling at the bottom, 972-497-2280. So without further ado, let's get started. Ladies, why don't we kind of get this warmed up a little bit? You know, we look at a time that some of our parents probably could not have imagined. When I say that, one, within our lifetime, we've had a Black president. I don't think most of our parents, much less grandparents, could have thought of that. But now we also have the first female vice president, but she is a Black woman as well. So there have been a lot of things that we have talked about today, and it's opened, I believe, significant opportunities for sisters that have really been the foundation for our families, our communities, and this country. But if you were to share in short order what your thoughts are on the state of womanhood and Black womanhood is today, what would that look like? What is the state of Black womanhood in America today? Starting in no particular order, just give us a short version and then we'll get warmed up to the other questions.
So I'll start us out, and I want to preface my remarks by saying that Black women are not monolithic, right? We're not all the same. But what I'll be speaking from tonight are some, research statistics, some surveys, some that bring us a taste of a shared commonality that we all have about how our community looks at us and treats us, and how people outside of our community looks at us and treats us. And I think that the mainstays for Black women and what we're concerned about remain the same from the last generation is children, relationships, health, wealth, spirituality. I think that the way that we live this life and live inside of this skin and what happens to us is a big thing that's changing.
All right, perfect. Carla, what are your thoughts? What is the state of Black womanhood today, in your opinion?
In my opinion, the state of Black womanhood is actually in flux. I think we have, and I'll speak from a millennial standpoint, elder millennial, but looking at the pandemic and how it's changed everyone, even before pandemic, when the administration changed after the Obama administration, if you notice, there was that march that happened with the Women's March, where women were all the pink hats and were protesting things. And there were Black women in that crowd that had signs up that said, remember that white women voted overwhelmingly for this president. I think it was at that time where we really, as Black women, started to say, we're doing a lot of work for a lot of different communities. And a lot of people are reliant on us as their mules to carry on different civil rights and civil actions, but we're not taking too much care of ourselves. I think that's also in the community as well. You'll see on all different types of social media, yes, you have the movement of women wanting to be more feminine and rest in that and saying, if I want to be with someone because of their money, I'm not a monster for that. That's okay. Gotcha. But also seeing people who are saying, you know what, I want to take care of me. I want to rest. I don't want to be the matriarch. I don't want to do all of these things while I'm not taking care of myself. So influx is what I think.
Torquisa. And you kind of represent a unique voice that I'm very much looking forward to hearing today. What are your thoughts on the state of Black womanhood in America today?
I would definitely say that where we are at now is
a little bit further than where our grandparents, our parents were, because now we have a wave of women loving themselves. I don't think that actually women took out time back generations ago to love themselves. I think love was basically given out, but to love themselves back was at an all-time low. So now I think that we have a self-love wave going around where women actually stepping into the skin that they are in and becoming more of what they know that they can be, except of who they was told to be or who they was showed to be. Actually picking up the identity of themselves and not for the family, not for the husband, not for nobody, but actually just for themselves. So I would definitely say we on a definitely a great wave of breaking generational curses and passing down healing, just like we passed down a lot of broken things. So I would definitely say that.
Thank you for that, Ms. Sandaria. What say you?
I would say that after politically, America, especially the media, because it seems like whatever people put in the media, that's what's true. Even if it's things that we've known all along or things we've been working for forever. So now America sees that the Black woman can carry the vote. And then all of a sudden, we started to say it's the year of the Black woman, especially with getting the vice president. It's the year of the Black woman, and Black women are being seen, and Black women should we haven't received what we should have, our just due. I would say we haven't received that, and so it seems like also we're trying to get rid of the stigma of the strong Black woman, which has been placed on us and which we've tried to live up to forever. And that's a stigma that's really challenging to get rid of. And so, what I would hope for the Black woman is that we don't get caught up in the optics of um, of the media saying that they need us. We're gonna finally get the jobs. We're gonna finally stop hitting our heads on the glass ceiling, and that we're gonna be heard because that's one thing that, regardless, we've never been heard before. And so, hopefully, that's what we will. I mean, I think Black women are screaming now and still not being heard.
Understandable. And Kendra, what are your thoughts on the state of Black womanhood in America?
Yeah, I want to echo what everyone else is saying. I feel like we're dominating and we're winning in many different areas. We have seats at tables that Black women didn't have in the past, but we're still encountering challenges when it comes to support and respect, whether it's amongst those outside our race, we're having this same disrespect and lack of support within our race, and even from other Black women. So I feel like that's been a challenge that a lot of us are still encountering and that we need to address.
Absolutely. I appreciate y'all your thoughts. And that's just my lob ball for the day. And so we're going to get this ball rolling. We want to thank, before we get started, Dr. Zaya Wallace. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your chats. Thank you for your thoughts. And we'll definitely look forward to what you have to say as we move on to the conversation. So, one of the things, this is a big political year, 2022. Midterm elections coming up in November of this year. We just went through primaries in most states. And, we look at a couple of you guys mentioned the year of the woman, or the opportunities that women have. I mean, we now have a vice president who is a sister. We have our first Black woman seated on the Supreme Court. We have a sister who is running the Office of Management and Budget, Secretary of HUD. Matter of fact, the Secretary and the Deputy Secretary of HUD are both sisters. We have the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors. So we have a lot of pretty visible Black women in positions of authority under the current administration. And some might say, hey, that's progress. But there are 20-something odd million Black women of the 40-something odd million Black people in this country. And there are a variety of different demographics and needs. So as we look at this midterm election, weighing in on the balance of what potentially happens with the House, what happens in Congress, it's very clear that it was sisters who made the difference in Joe Biden's campaign, turning it around in South Carolina, that was pretty much left for dead, and now he's president. What should Black women be thinking about in these midterm elections? What should Black women be asking for an administration that owes them something? We'll start off with you, Carla. Get your thoughts, and then we'll kind of spin around for anyone
So
else.
happy that you did that, Tommy, because I was over here burning to get this round. Definitely over nodding my head, like, please, please feel the energy. I definitely think that it should be student loan forgiveness. Black women are certainly the most educated group. You can look at all the stats to bear that out. I'm sure the other panelists will bring that up. But with that degree and with that most educated title comes the most in student loan debt as well. When you have education that is seen as a necessity but priced as a luxury, that's a problem. And certainly that's a problem along all different types of people, but especially it hits Black people most, it hits Black women most. There are grants out there for businesses to help people who have their own, but for those who don't want to invest in their own business or in a field that doesn't require them to have their own business, you still have these loans hanging over people's heads. I think if Biden really wanted to do something, he would hold up his end of the bargain and be very true about that. Or whatever student loan forgiveness package you have, don't make it income cap for those who are Black, because we know that even though you may have a certain income, if you're taking care of the family, what we call the Black tax, where you have the money, but you're taking care of mama, you're taking care of sister, you're taking care of brother, you still don't have the generational wealth. If you want to build back generational wealth, I think Black women should say, hey, we really need to talk about student loan forgiveness, not just for us, but for our kids and for everyone else in our family. And if we can tackle that, I think we can really make some great change.
All right. And of course, I knew you would be prepared.
I agree
what, are you,
wholeheartedly.
what are your thoughts, Faye? If you had an opportunity to influence what's going on right now, and we're looking at another 5 to 6 months, and we have a big election coming up, what are your thoughts in terms of the voices that you represent, in terms of the sisters' agenda and what the ask should be for the Biden-Harris administration?
Well, first of all, I want to point out that 93% of African American women voted for the Biden Harris ticket, right? And that, of course, we all give accolades to, oh, we made history, but it's beyond we made history and we have a couple of names. What people really wanted was for Harris to represent an inspirational surge of women applying and being into the political system and running for offices and having that same wave of importance and pressure and community that brought the Biden Harris ticket in to uplift under the wings of all these other new faces going in. And as we, people always say politics are local, right? So it's not just can we get some more people on the Supreme Court, which is critical and important, but we have a plethora of communities all around, and we have local rules, restrictions, problems right in our communities that we need not just faces, but we need a number of people. We need a concentration. So I'm really more interested in we need higher percentages showing up in places where people can make decisions. And for 93% of our vote, I think that along with policies federally, that we also need to look at having our places and faces at tables that can make decisions all along the continuum of how life is dictated and lived in our communities.
Thank you very much, Faye. We'd also like to welcome Tara, that is, I'm sorry, who is chatting in, and Francis and Omega. So we want to thank you all for joining and through the chat line today. What are your thoughts, Torquisi? What are the young folks saying? What are their thoughts in terms of what's been happening over the last year and a half, and what should they be asking?
Well, I would definitely speak for me, and I know the people that I speak with, I definitely can speak for them. I would definitely ask for a woman to be able to do what she wants to do with her body. The bill that was passed where women is not allowed to do what they want to do with their body, I feel like that was against the rules altogether. I feel that now that we have actually a Black woman in office, I think it's important for us and all to know that it is important for a black woman to be able to control her body. And when they passed the bill of the abortion, of stopping the abortions or anything, I think that was against the rule. I think that should be asked now and be uplifted, just like when Obama was in office, when they made Pride and you can marry whatever sex you want. I think that a bill should be passed where a woman should be able to do exactly what she wants to do with her body, because that is her body and she should be able to dictate whatever she wants to do with her body. So
So
I think
you're referring, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're referring to Roe v. Wade, correct?
yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right, that makes sense. Kendra, Sandaria, any particular order? What are your thoughts? And then we'll move on to the next question.
I'll just go ahead and speak up for that because I think at one point Malcolm X said something, and I'll paraphrase, is that the black woman is the most disrespected woman in America. Also, but we are the most educated, and but we have the least amount of salaries. And so I think economic freedom until we receive that, just similar to what Black America as a whole, but especially to the Black woman, right? And to do that, I think our government is actually going to have to pour some money into Black women as a whole, and not just this small percent that we can see on the Supreme Court or in other positions of power, because there are more people than just that position of power. And I think with us having that opportunity to have economic freedom, that if we win, so does America.
No, thank you for that. Definitely on point. Kendra, any final thoughts as before we close and move to another subject line?
Yeah, no, I would agree with everyone. I think for me and what I see to be the biggest one would be student loan forgiveness. As a new graduate within during the pandemic, and when we were bringing in Biden and Harris, our focus was that we were going to receive this support when it came to our loan forgiveness, and kind of seeing where that's going. It's kind of been deterring us and having us question, do we might make the right choice with bringing them into office? And so I think for a lot of those and the younger millennials and the newly graduates, I think that's the main focus when it comes to Black women and what they're looking for when it comes to politics.
Okay, thank you for that. And we'd also like to thank Tennille Shorter for joining us today on the chat line. And the winner, I believe that is Freddie Roberts. Always good to see you. Glad to have you back. There were a couple things that were said that I'd like to dig into a little bit deeper. And I think the last was Sandaria, when you talked about the economic investment that will influence opportunities for Black women. Again, Black women have been the foundation of our community. We understand that, quite frankly, within our community, we could not get anything done without the community, whether we talk about civil rights, whether we talk about the foundation for which we were brought here, which was to build an economy for folks who came here from Europe. The Black woman has always been the foundation. But when we talk about economic investment and opportunity, where should that money go? If we're talking about policy change, if we're talking about new investments, if we're talking about the infusion of capital by way of policy that will provide more opportunities for Black women, there's a statement that says that a rising tide shifts all ships up. Shifts all ships up. That probably isn't the exact way to say it, but
a rising tide lifts all boats.
Thank you. A rising tide lifts all boats. So when we strengthen Black America, we strengthen America. And if we strengthen the Black woman, we strengthen America. When we talk about economic opportunities and policy change, I'm not going to call on anyone in any particular order. What does that look like to you, and why is that important?
So I'm just going to go ahead since I brought it up. And I know this is probably not going to be the most popular answer, but I think that money should go directly into my bank account. Okay, Carla, I see we're on the same page. I mean, it's not going to, I know that there are institutions and everything, but also since we've been oppressed, the most oppressed, I think, of all people, has been the Black woman. And I think that to bring us up, just to lift us up to a certain level, not even what I would consider would be called equality. There has to be room for us. There has to be room made for us. And I've been in many situations where as a matter of fact, I have a conference call tomorrow where I had to be the squeaky wheel so that a black person would be at the table. And we get so tired of fighting for that seat at the table. And then we also think that, well, a lot of us are in corporate America or whatever. And so that becomes even more challenging to get that seat at the table. And even when we have our people that like us who are men, the black man, I don't know if when that black man is in the room that he's advocating for me to also come in that room as well. And so I think that if we had our own money, then we can start creating opportunities for the woman, create opportunities for women and for ourselves. And it's a lot of being heard, being respected, and being noticed for the work that we do, like for the work that and things that we bring to the table. But I don't either way. I don't think as black people as a whole, or just black women, we can do anything really without economic freedom.
Let me ask you this, and I'm going to kind of steer to Faye on this because I know that you have a pretty significant business background in addition to being an entrepreneur. You know that statistically speaking, black women are the fastest growing demographic of entrepreneurs in the country. And so when we talk about economic opportunity policy, et cetera, what does that look like from your standpoint?
Well, first, let me say in terms of context, that whole thing about a rising tide lifts all boats, not true. Reaganomics, that whole drip down theory, not true. But here is what is true, is that, and research bears this out, no matter what area or arena we're talking about, is that when you fix something systemically that's wrong for the few, it benefits the majority, right? So that means that if we then bring parity, economic viability, respect, and all the things that black women need to black women, and we're allowed to flourish, that does nothing but contribute to the overall sector and all the other people that are in it. So let me just say that in terms of context. In terms of what we need, I'm not really interested in being noticed or being put in the room. I want to come into the room with power. I
Mm-hmm.
want voting privileges. I want the ability to make decisions that stick and that I'm not being, pulled apart from background politics or good old boy stuff. Money, I want portfolio. I want asset. I want shares. That's what I want because I want assets that you can use in this economic system called capitalism that will grow. As far as what black women need, we've been doing research for 20 years and we're running into the very same kinds of things. We're still running into powerful black women that are having to be muted because if you're too powerful or too loud, you become the black bee in the room. And then that pulls your power away. Or if you are in corporations and you achieve too much, then you're perceived as being too smart and outside of where you should be. And then that creates an attack environment for you. So some of the systemic things that we were hearing in research from black women, from black people in hierarchy and leadership, we're hearing the same stories in 2022. So for me, I would like to see systemic change and I would like to see not just more people there, but I would like to see us in situations with powers to make decisions so that in capitalism, the whole bottom line is profit, right? Put us out front. Let us make some profit for you and then let us have the rewards that come with that.
So I'm going to piggyback on that, but I'm going to have to take it a little bit further. So when you say let us, because for me, it comes down to leverage. It comes down to leverage and influence. And if we're talking about more economic opportunity for black women, having a seat at the table of power, policy decisions, influence, that's not typically something that you're going to ask for. It's something that you're going to take. So if we, and I'm going to kind of steer towards some of our other panelists, from your perspective, if we look at the history of this country and our history in it, we've had to die, bleed, at a minimum, sacrifice or make the ultimate sacrifice for everything we've gotten. And then when we made those sacrifices, in a lot of cases, other people benefited from them just as much, if not more than we did. So the question then becomes, how do we use leverage in order to gain an advantage, not particularly asking or getting the opportunity, but taking the opportunity? And I'm going to leave this open to anyone who'd like to put their thoughts into that for our audience. And before we do that, I'd like to thank Ms. C. Smith for joining us and Ms. Rosalind Story as well. Let's talk about leverage. I mean, Black women are, in my opinion, the most powerful demographic in this country. You single-handedly elected a president. That is a lot of power. What do we do with that? Table's open.
I would definitely say one of the things that we can do, I'll speak specifically just for Black women, obviously, is to, I was raised to think that and know that I had to work twice as hard to get half as far as others, right? I'm not teaching my kids that. I think a lot of things that we do is fixed on what's called the white gaze. So thinking about, if I do a thing, what are the other people thinking? If I, am the one in the room, and if I'm speaking too much, and going back to what Faith said excellently about, I'm going to be the Black bee, what are they going to think about me? I think if we can get more bold and just say, I don't care what you think about me, because you're perceiving me that way anyway. There's no way I can perpetuate a stereotype, because what that means to me is you're saying I can't be who I am because I'm going to reinforce a thought that you have. And that's not fair to me. And going back to what the wonderful therapists and people on the panel said before about Black women trying to step into a space to be who you are, whoever that is. I love the comment from the winner in the chat about giving those student loan forgiveness to people in those areas. But women who do hair are amazing. That's therapy. They're doing a service. I can't do or rock a lace front wig to save my life. To see those women who are able to pluck the hairlines and do magic with that, and then to do chemistry by doing hair dryer and bond and then make it tacky and then put it, that is magic and that is a skill. Mm-hmm. So if that money went straight to us, if it went there in the way of reparations and not just to a particular elite class of people or people who are in a different group, but to all of us, that would be something. So I would say for us to really succeed, I think we sell ourselves short, particularly Black women. I'm going to say a thing here. As somebody who has 5 brothers, and I'm closing my eyes while I say this, sometimes we sell ourselves short in order to protect our Black men, and it doesn't help any of us. So if we can step in that room and have the mindset of, I'm going to be as bold as the most mediocre white man and demand things as if I am owed them, a lot of times we actually will get them. I think if we just claim that and use that leverage and go, I'll walk if you don't give me what I want, I think we can do, again, great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Also, Carla, just to tag on to that and what Tommy said, he said we elected a Black, we elected a president, we elected a Black vice president. And I think there's power in numbers. And I've sat on many panels and had similar discussions, until I'm blue in the face. And then we say that we're going to meet up, we're going to continue this conversation, we're going to see how we can come together and make change. And we don't do it. And I know that a lot of times we don't because we're tired. And then we run into the next election and we come together again to elect another person. And it's important to have people there, but it's also important for us to get together outside of that and make changes on the local level as well, not in politics, but in business, and coming together and creating a goal and producing some things ourselves.
Thank you very much, Sandaria. Torquisi, Kendra, any thoughts in this area?
I was just going to say, I think to add to that, it's important to hold people accountable. So if they're going to be put in these roles, if they're promising that they're going to do something for a particular population or a community, and they're not upholding their promises, then we need to make the decisions and do the advocating to either remove them from the office or, like I said, hold them accountable. So just accountability, I think, is important right now for black women to hold others accountable.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
And I think that that's true for inside our communities. You know, it speaks to that
Yeah.
whole thing about Black women being, you know, this fierce woman that takes care of everybody and never takes care of herself. So I think that, like we're demanding respect in the workplace, we need to demand that respect in the community. We need to demand that respect from ourselves. And, you know, this whole thing about self-care and about giving yourself grace first is probably the healthiest thing that we can model to the women around us and the women that are coming behind us.
You bring up a very provocative topic. I guess I'm going to weave a couple of things that a few of you said. You know, one in terms of moving into an environment and advocating for yourself, but having to protect Black men. I forgot who said that, but somebody said that. And then also, there we go, Carla, in terms of relationships per se, I believe it may have been you, Sandira, who said a little bit earlier about, you know, when Black men are at the table, are they advocating for Black women? And I guess what I'm speaking to are the relationships between Black men and Black women, whether we're talking about it from a familial perspective or if we're talking about it economically. And quite frankly, I don't know that I talk to anybody who's been married who doesn't acknowledge that, you know, marriage is also a business, among other things. But when we talk about the business of relationships and Black women, statistically speaking, this isn't, I think, a quietly kept secret that sisters are the least likely of their peers to be married for various reasons, whether that has to do with what some people say the state of Black men, whether it has to do with focusing on their careers for a significant part of their time and maybe putting off marriage and or relationships. But when we talk about that, the economic foundation of all communities is family, and the foundation of that is marriage. Let's talk about this whole thing about the statistics in Black women being the least married of all of the major demographic groups. What are your perspectives on that? Why, in your opinion, do you see that Black women are the least married of the major demographic groups? And let's kind of see where that goes. And I know none of y'all are shy. So.
Well, the first thing I would say is that oftentimes when I hear people talk about that, they demonize Black women and they say, oh, well, you know, it's because you're too smart or you expect too much or you're more educated or, you know, you already have your house, your BMW, and you're, you know, 3 degrees. So now you're making yourself unattractive. It always seems to turn on those kinds of topics when people are talking about it. But how about we just say, what do Black women need? And how do they get that? And how do they take care of themselves as they also put the world on their shoulders? And that maybe marriage is a relationship that feeds into that, but I just don't know that that's a leading detector of what kind of Black woman I am or how valuable I am, or it says something about me if I'm not married, have never been married, or I've been married 12 times.
And it's not speaking at it from a perspective of the value of the Black woman. I don't think there's any question of the value of the Black woman. But when we talk to when we talk to the conversation of economics and the net worth of our households, if we talk about the development of the next generation and the next generation of that and the stability of the household, if we look at several different factors and it talks or speaks to marriage, that is the foundation of capitalism and economy in this country. And so if we look at the demographics of poverty in America, numerically speaking, there are more folks within the white community. But if we look at it statistically speaking, there's a higher percentage of Black women within that demographic group who are poor because a lot of them, quite frankly, have been doing it by themselves, raising children. what we were speaking to earlier, least opportunities. And so when we look at marriage as an opportunity to have an economic impact in our communities, that's what I'm speaking to in terms of building the economy of our community.
I think, Tony, too, just, I don't know if I can answer this wholeheartedly, but I've been looking at it from several different perspectives. And one of them, like we talked about systemic racism, and I think this can fall in that category as well. It's like when we look at beauty, we're portrayed as the least beautiful, right? We're not as beautiful as our counterparts. And when we look at everything, like even if all the way down to things that we come here with, like maybe a larger behind, a larger butt, or whatever. It's not popular until somebody else's butt is larger or whatever. And so I think a lot of it, by the way that we're portrayed in America as Black women, I was thinking about when I do a job or when I want something, I want the best, right? And so if someone had to choose the Black woman, then based upon what media say, we are not what the best. We're not the best of what it is that they could have. And so
Clarify what that means.
there's anything,
Clarify what that means.
if that had anything to do with it, like how we're portrayed in America as not being beautiful, as not being what is desirable or whatever. And then like what Faye said, not when we're educated, being too educated or not educated enough or whatever in that respect. So I was just wondering what the panel thought about that.
And be more specific on the ask or the question, Cindy.
What do you think about this being a systemic problem in the way that we've been portrayed in America as a Black woman, as not being the best selection that you could make, or not being the best, like not being the most disrespected, not being considered the most beautiful, or whatever.
Otherwise, you're referring to the statement earlier about what Malcolm X has said about Black women being the most disrespected.
Like you were asking, like why are we the least married group? And I'm saying this systemic. Is it systemic as well? Is it?
I got you. And let's be very clear. Black women and Black men were probably the most likely to be married in this country through the early 70s. That's when it began to change through some structural things. But let me back up and allow our other panelists to address that, and then we can go there if we need to. Any other thoughts from the panel on Sanderia's question?
Yeah,
and I'm speaking to an image issue.
I don't think that that's the problem, or I think it's part of it, but I don't think it's the principle, the main part. Because of, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who said, or Sandira, I think it was you, who take our bodies and put them on someone of a different race. Take our attitudes, spicy Latina, and put that on somebody of a different race, and they're seen as pros or something that makes someone unique or stand out. But then when it's on us, it's a problem. And I don't see anything else than seeing that is something that we can't solve. That seems like to be something more of the psyche of the men who are not choosing us. So I can't have an answer when I'm not part of that group. And I say that again as someone who has 5 brothers. I say this as someone who obviously has dated Black men, and the Black men who are have the basic of wonderful things, who have a little bit of money, a little bit of education. The way that they can tell you in a heartbeat, I can have my pick of the litter. And they know that. And so they treat us that certain way. And I think that we as women have been taught to look at these men, not just as a potential partner, but as our brother, as our father, as our uncle, as someone, again, to take care of. And so we have a different type of loyalty to holding out for that person. Instead of just saying, I just want to be happy. And I have friends who are married to other people who are not Black. And I asked them that question. And I will say that it's not someone who said, ever since I was 2 years old, this is what I wanted. But they have been people who said, I want to be happy and I deserve happiness. And so I decided to broaden my outlook, not just choose that people outside of the race, which I hear a lot of Black men saying, I can't be with a Black woman because just a sweeping thing. But more
Mhm.
so, I opened up my eyes and just kind of let love find me wherever it is. So I think for all of us who have kids, you want better for your kids, and sometimes it's like better
Mhm.
education. I think a lot of Black men think if my kid is lighter, if they're closer to whiteness, then I am closer to that. But and I will say we, don't want to admit that to ourselves. But when
Mhm.
you look at even who the video vixens were, not that we aspire to be video vixens, not that there's anything wrong with those women, but who they were in the 90s, who they were back in the Soul Train days, to who they are now, and this exotic look and this as far away from blackness as can be, that's something else that goes beyond what the media is telling people when the media is putting women who have all the things that we are, except for who we are, right there in our face.
Yeah. I think we've been hacked too. Tony, I don't know if you see it.
Yeah, yes, I do see it. And Jimmy, if you're looking at that on my production side, can we get rid of the crap spam on the side there? And I do apologize about that for our guests
Like they
there.
are talking about sex and dates. Like,
Yeah, exactly, but not type of content we're looking at. But let's talk about the elephant in the let's talk about the elephant in the room that you brought up. Should more Black women just marry outside of our race? Would not that solve the problem?
I think
Or
so.
should Black women just know themselves and what they want and what they
Their
need
worth.
and
Yeah.
what
That's
they
right.
have to bring and entertain all comers, and then
Mm.
just sort it from
In
there.
essence, the same
Yeah.
question. You just said it
Yeah,
more eloquently, but in essence, the same question.
definitely.
I think it's a two-part on that. Kind of going off of what Ms. Faye said. I think one, Black women need to know their worth, and they need to know that all their needs can be met. Are they putting themselves in the right spaces to meet those needs?
Mhm.
So where are you looking for these partners? Where are you who are you entertaining? Are you entertaining someone that you already know isn't going to meet your standards, and then you fall into a situation where you were in a relationship 10 years down the line and you don't know this person or why you're even with this person? Are you placing yourself in circles with like-minded people that meet your standards of what you're searching for? So I think that is a question Black women need to ask. And then on top of that, going off of what Carla said in regards to how Black men view Black women, I think it's a trauma response based on their relationships with their mothers and the things they've encountered. I think a lot of Black men were raised in single parent homes. We're aware of this just based off of statistics. And with that, their Black moms had to be the mom and the dad, although that's not a people don't like that term, but they had to be a strong Black woman. They had to teach their sons not only what it's like to just live life, but how to be a man. And so they may have came off rough, and they may have seen them struggle. And there's just things that they've seen their mothers do that has led to them think, well, I don't want to be with someone who resembles what my mother is. And so a lot of times you can hear men say, well, you're just like my mom, you're just like my mom. So which has probably led them to seek other women outside of their race.
What are your thoughts, Torquisi?
I also think that I definitely agree with her, but I definitely think it's a trauma response. When it comes to, I would say, breaking generational curses. If you haven't saw nobody in your family date a person outside of your race, it's going to be definitely hard for you to date someone outside of your race. So I think doing the things that haven't been done to see what your response is, not your family's response. I think that's the stop when it comes to us Black women dating outside our race because of maybe what the family would think or what others would think, but actually what we think. We can date 12 Black men and don't see any change, but scared to step outside of our race to actually see any change. So I would definitely say it's a trauma response, and also breaking generational curses to actually date any race, because I feel like all race is the human race, whatever color it is. So
since you said that, I don't want to mess up your name, but do all races think that Black women are the human race? Like, we're saying that like it's just like, okay, yeah, we have this whole plethora of men asking Black women out on dates, all of these other people. Is that true now? I know I'm asking because you're younger. And I'm just asking, is that
Okay.
true now, or is that?
That's a good question. That's not me, but I can definitely say I have friends. And I would definitely say that when it comes to that, I wouldn't say that all people of all races feel the same way about us, but everybody is not the same, you know. So definitely meeting people that's on your wavelength. Everybody is not going to be on your wavelength, but you definitely can meet people that's on your wavelength. And meeting those people, most of my clients are not my race, and I feel that I'm more connected in certain ways with them than I am with my own people, because I think our people let trauma stop them from a lot of things in their life, you know, except overcoming trauma and actually going to people outside of our race are quick to go to therapists, but black people don't go to therapists because they feel like it's nothing wrong. So definitely saying, not saying everybody will feel the same way as that, but definitely finding somebody on our wavelength that does feel the same way as that.
We have about 10 minutes left in our show, and we have covered a lot. I want to thank you first and foremost. And we could probably do another hour of this, but obviously, we will have to have another segment of this at another time. One area that I definitely want to make sure that we take some time to talk about before we close tonight's show, and we have a couple of you who are obviously very strong in this area, when we look at the issue of health in the Black community and the issue of health and Black women in particular. And multiple of you have talked about, helping and supporting and taking care of everyone else. And unfortunately, that leaves a lot of our women out. From your perspective, what do you consider to be the most significant health related issue, physical, mental, otherwise, for Black women? And how do we begin to address it? Again, what do you believe is the most problematic health related issue for Black women? And let's kind of talk about how do we deal with it.
Let me start out because I wanted to make sure I was able to share some stats with our audience. When you talk about poor health outcome, Black women are leaders. Currently, we are leading in uterine cancer. Between 2010 and 2017, if you looked at all women, there was a 1.8% experience level. When you went to Black women, it hopped up to 18% for Black women.
Wow.
Breast cancer, we're doing research right now in a couple of states. The highest mortality rate of all cancers, breast cancer is. We're 31%. 31%. And then if you talk about premature babies, 50% of babies that Black women have are premature. And then when you talk
50%.
about maternal mortality and death, we are 2.5% times the rate of any other kind of woman on the planet to die as we birth. And a lot of when you do the research and kind of pull that through, a lot of what happens is that this whole myth about Black women can tolerate so much more pain means that we're not given adequate care and we're not giving adequate medication when we come in. And then the other thing is that they disregard what Black women say. Just recently, in some research we've done, we've heard many and many examples of where a Black woman came in after she was sent home after having a C-section and came in and said, "Hey, something is wrong," and they sent her home and she died.
Mm.
So that was the kind of stuff we were listening to 15 years ago in research. And it's the same thing because the myth, the racism, the sexism, the distortion in the medical system continues, and Black women continues to get less than treatment.
I presume, Carla, you might have something to say on this subject.
Yes, wholeheartedly agree. Additionally, with that, I think the thing to do is for us, if we can really push how we can not just be in the healthcare field, but volunteer in that field, become Black doulas, which is why the
That's right.
disturbing decision of Roe v. Wade being possibly overturned means a death sentence for Black women. I am still currently in that postpartum stage, meaning a year after birth, where I am still in a high risk stage where anything can happen. The situation of the Black woman being sent home and dying after C-section or something like that happened to my sister-in-law. It happened last year. We gave birth 4 weeks apart. And when my baby was 1 week old, she passed away of a heart attack. She told them that she was having a heart attack and could feel that. She was very young. They did not believe her. I am in a field of genetics where so many people come in and say, "Oh, this is happening in my family. It must be genetic." And about 5 to 10% of all cancer is genetic. The rest of it happens by chance or reasons that we don't know. Of all the different numbers that you're here that we pass away of these things, but we don't have a higher incidence of them, meaning we are not the ones that are affected most of these things. We just happen to die once we actually get it. And so another thing I would say is that, research, there's not a lot of research that's done on us because we're not in research, because research has been horrible to us. I say that as somebody who works for the NIH. I understand all these different things that happen. It is hurtful. It is hurtful for someone like me who gave birth and have an 8-month-old to know that as long as I'm in the hospital, you hold my life in your hands. And that is true with all the stats. So with these things, it's not just a matter of what we can do. Yes, we need to advocate for ourselves, but sometimes we don't know how to advocate for ourselves. So being able to speak, and this again, I think is a trend that if we can say in all areas of life, I'm not okay, I need help. I don't like the way this feels and remove myself from the situation. If we can value ourselves by making that just something that we do, we can also do that in the medical space and go, no, I'm not going back there. I don't feel well. No, somebody needs to check on me. These are things that we can do for ourselves, but I also don't want to put the blame just on us. Sometimes we say, well, if we stop eating pork chops, oxtails, and everything else, it'll be fine. Guess what, y'all? Other people, especially across the South, all across the board, are eating these things. They're not dying like us. They don't have hypertension like us. We're holding a higher burden of carrying up this entire country, and we have to let that go.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right, ladies. Kendra, Sandaria, Torquisi, what are your thoughts on the same subject?
I just wanted to add one of the things that needs to be brought to is Black women and mental health and how they are treated by whether it's police officers or any other institution, because I was just looking up some stuff the other day and I came across within the past year probably at least 10 Black women who were struggling with mental health that were shot or killed within the custody of police officers. And I don't think there's enough coverage on these Black women. There's not enough attention on this, and just mental health in general. When it comes to the Black community, there needs to be some rallying behind figuring these situations out.
I
And you
especially
know what? Just think about it. If in these United States of America, 50% of white women had premature babies,
It would
certainly
be
action would,
crisis. It would
yes.
absolutely be the crisis that it is. The numbers are bad. And I think, again, that thing of all these different things, mental health space, it does something to you, Tommy, to be a Black woman in the country.
And it looks like we may have a call here, so I'm going to see if we have a call here, and within a couple of minutes. Black Men Speak. This is Tommy Duncan. If you would tell us who you are, where you're from, and what question or thought do you have?
Hi, my name is Tanya, and I am from DeSoto. And I want to say that I am enjoying all the ladies that are on the panel. You're doing an outstanding job. We're getting a lot of information. It's refreshing to see some estrogen in the room. Secondly, I'd like to just go back to the topic of relationships and the lack of Black people marrying one another anymore. And since we have such a panel of very intelligent women, well-versed, I'd like to ask the question. I've heard some people put solutions to, it would be a great solution to have women marry one man and he marry multiple women, as they do in some over in Africa and some of the other, races do it in other countries. So what do you all think about that as a solution? One Black man, maybe 2 or 3 Black women to solve our lack of marriage.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Tanya. We have about a couple of minutes, so we'll have closing thoughts on the health, and then we'll get to that, and then we are about done for the night. Thank you so much. All right. Any other thoughts on the healthcare? And I know, Torquisi, I know you didn't have anything, have an opportunity to share anything on that, and then we will go to the question from Ms. Tanya.
I feel for Black women, mental health is important. Taking out time for yourself is important. not putting so much on any man, regardless of whatever race he is. Really loving yourself. Can't no man love you if you don't love you. So definitely taking out time to love yourself. When it comes to the disease in the United States, period, I feel disease come from things that's blocked off in your body. By me studying the mind and the brain and the heart, it really shows that if you don't take our time to unlock the things that's happened in your life, but way before the person that you're dealing with or going to deal with, it will cause dis-ease. And if you spell dis-ease, you will definitely get that you will die easily. So definitely taking our time for your mental health to really love you, because if you don't love you, I don't feel nobody will love you. So mental health is important every day. I feel like black women and black men should take out time for them just to find out who they are, to find out what their love language is, so they can know. So yeah, I would definitely say that mental health is important, and taking out time for you just to love you daily is the key.
Okay. Now let's go to the question posed by the caller, and that would be the viability of a man supporting multiple wives. And obviously, this is a common practice in some countries. Obviously, we have it in the United States. The Mormons, obviously, a different cultural ethos. But what are your thoughts on that? And Jimmy, by the way, it looks like we may have been hacked again, so you could jump on that as quickly as possible while our panelists address that question.
I kind of figured that was Jimmy's question. But before we answer that, I wanted to say that Dr. Stacy McCormick at TCU is doing research on the percentages of women who are the premature, all of that around gynecology and healthcare for women. So if you ever wanted to reach out to her for that, Dr. Stacy McCormick over at TCU, African American woman.
Okay.
And my answer to that question is just a big no for me. But anyway, that's it.
Okay. Other
There have
thoughts?
been women who have been in polyamorous relationships without their consent. So that's a very different thing. From an
Yeah.
anthropology standpoint, which my undergrad was in anthropology, my bachelor's degree. That polyamory, having one man with many different spouses or partners, was in a case where you need the population to grow. We are not in that situation. There are just as many civilizations that have had it where there's been one woman and many men when they need the population to decrease. So if we're looking
Correct.
at where it should be the other way around. But that being said, love who you love, and that applies to if you're okay with a throuple, being three people in a couple, as long as everybody is as a consenting adult, that is no business of mine, and as long as people are happy.
Okay. Other thoughts? None.
I would just say to my daughters that be clear on yourself, be clear on what you need, and be clear that the person that you align yourself with or allow into your life meets that need. And that in the long run is going to be more important and more satisfying and healthier for you than concentrating on what race he is or
Mhm.
how many other partners we got to mix with or any of that. I think a lot of times, myself included, that I was raised very Southern as a Southern woman, right? And it's all about collaboration and taking care of others and all of that. And what happens is that sometimes you allow yourself to be left out of that equation because you're so focused on this is what it means to be a Black woman and not be the Black bee or not be any of those other things, those other horror stories that people like to say about us. But in the end, you're the person in that relationship. If you're not getting what you need, then it doesn't really matter. So I would just say, let's be clear on ourselves. Let's love ourselves. And not so much about standards, but really about what do you need? What lifts you? What helps you to be the best you can be? And where do you get pleasure? That if we focused on that, that maybe, our divorce rate wouldn't be what it is today.
That's right.
Yes.
That,
All
that
right,
is so
perfect.
true.
Ladies, in the interest of time, I'll have each of you to give a 30-second closing comment. 30-second closing comment. We're a little bit over time, but for what it's worth, as Jimmy always say, we on this platform, this is our show, so we can go over a couple of minutes if we need to. So I'll have each of you to share a closing thought in our conversation. Before we close, I want to thank you all. You have been outstanding. There are probably at least a couple of different shows that I already am projecting that we need to have just based upon the conversation today. So I want to thank you all for your brilliance. What do we call it? Black girl magic that you have brought into the universe today, and everybody is edified because of it. So that being said, 30 seconds for each of you on a closing comment, and then we will close today's show. Kendra, we'll start with you.
I just want to say that for Black women to know your worth, to continue to be loud, continue to advocate for yourself, advocate for other women, advocate for your community, and just continue to show up. And like Ms. Faye says, what you want is out there. You just need to be out there and to find it.
Torquisa, what do you say?
I would definitely say for my closing statement would be to definitely love yourself. Take out time for you. Ask for what you want. Regardless if you get it or not, ask for it. Know your worth every day. Add something to your worth every day. Keep being who you are and take out time for you.
Carla, your thoughts.
Thank you to everyone for just surviving these last few years. That's a hard task for all Black people who made it this far. Take some time to rest. It's a beautiful thing that we're starting to realize that we need to do that. Be easy on yourselves, be easy on each other. Whether you're somebody who wears a bonnet and long lashes, whether you're somebody who could never see themselves doing that and can only go for curly natural hair, who cares? Let each Black woman, each Black person really rely on who they are and how they see themselves as a woman. Let them live that truth. Be easy on yourselves. Congratulations on making it this far. You have some tools ahead of you to keep going.
Sandiri.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tommy, for inviting me here tonight. And it's really been my pleasure to meet all of you amazing women. And for the younger women, great. I love that you're saying taking care of yourself. I recently returned from a 10-day silent meditation center. Noble silence, no speaking, just looking within. So I agree with you on taking care of yourself first, because we work so hard. We have to get rest, and it's okay to rest, because even from the era that I was brought up in, if I'm not doing something, I have to force myself to rest and meditate. So please do those things. And then if you fight for that seat in the room or make your own. If you can't get a seat at the table, buy a table and invite people to your table, because there's success in numbers. And if we're this educated, I mean, the thing that we may not have is economic security. But if we come together and put those dollars that we have together, I don't think there's any limit to what we can do. And some of these family reunions, that's what we need to be talking about.
And Faye.
Okay, I'm going to do quick bullet points. As it relates to economic, I'm going to say generational wealth, as opposed to you got a great job. Generational wealth, that's how you succeed in these United States of America. Second thing I'm going to say is, if I were able to talk to myself, I was 16 when I went to college. If I were able to go back in time and talk to myself, I would say, get clear on what fuels you. And for me, it is being clear that God is the pillar of who I am, and that you move out from there. And that way you don't compromise who you are, what you need. You're not afraid of it. You're not ashamed of it. And it's not about demanding it. It's about, if you don't give it to me, if I can't give to you what you need, you just release them back into the universe with love.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing I would say, these women are an example of why I love being a Black woman. If I had to choose it again, I would come to the planet and be just who God made me to be.
Yes.
I would too.
Yes.
All right. We want to thank you again, ladies. And ladies and gentlemen, this is Black Men Speak. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, Tommy. Nice meeting.